Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. In this video we're going through the Indigenous All-Stars versus Fremantle pre-season hit-out. What a game it was, what a spectacle for footy it was, and just sort of going through the fancy implications. I know we need to not overreact, that's the main thing, so I think I only made two changes to it, but they were very, very simple, straightforward. There was no structure breaking, it was simply swap one guy in, swap one guy out, and I sort of made a note that those the four guys that were involved are very, very interchangeable back and forth in the two sets of, you would almost call it trades. But anyway, let's just jump into it and I'll give you my thoughts on everything involved. So Simkin 115, man, he looked really, really, really good. I don't know whether, let me see if the actual app has the quarter by quarter stats, because Simkin I don't think was up there at quarter time, and then he's just gone off in the second half. If we go quarter by quarter, so he was on 21, he was on 46 at halftime, and then had a 40 and 29. So he went off in the second half, including 17 touches in the second half, 17 touches and the goal in the second half, which is quite a good output for him. He was absolutely amazing and deservedly, I would say. Well, you did have Horne-Francis up there in terms of the medal for the Indigenous All-Stars, as they did run out winners, but they do have a medal there for the best player on ground, and I thought Simkin or Horne-Francis were clearly top two there. So that was interesting. Can't really take much into it because it's the Indigenous All-Stars. Basically, Simkin and Horne-Francis were the only midfielders there, and they only played 65%. There was also like 10 bench players, etc. But 10 clearances, he went off. But I just don't expect him to do that against a fully fledged midfield, I guess. It's hard to say, but yeah, it was surprising against Fremantle that he did it. But yeah, it is what it is. I don't also think that Reedy is the best ruckman. But anyway, O'Driscoll 107, I thought he was really good. Non-disposal points, plenty. 54 out of his 107 non-disposal point, well, 55 on technicality, but yeah, 50 points through disposals, and then 57 through non-disposals, as he got a couple of free kicks, it looks like, yeah, a couple of free kicks. So yeah, he did really, really well. And a 107, limited Tog, obviously, because of the 10-man bench, but I think he deserves the starting spot now because, yeah, that was a really good display from him. And yeah, he just decided to kick everything, which is a good kick to handball ratio, is obviously really, really good. And one behind there, he missed, I think it was it on the run? I want to say it might have been on the run. But yeah, it was quite far out, so it wasn't too bad of a miss. But 107 for him, definitely a guy that I've considered, and a guy that, like I said with in the intro, a guy that when I did that video, I believe I did a video on the, let's just look at it, fading, Supercoach best bargains, to loop or not to loop, etc., weapons, where is it, the M6 video I wanted to do, midfield structure, this video here, I kind of very much harped on about the, and you'll get more in depth if you go watch that video, about this M6 guy is almost the most critical guy in the side, because you're trying to find that third or fourth year player, in my opinion. I don't think you go for a rookie there. I think you go for a third or fourth year player that is in the system, that is heavily discounted, that has the body, the ability with their body to stand up and is just breaking into the side. And that could be O'Driscoll, that could be Nevitt, that could be well, to a certain extent Sardis, but Sardis is, in my opinion, a little bit overpriced for that role. But Sardis, Sheldrick, etc., those sort of guys there that are in that range there, because those are the guys that can go 85 in a year. And yes, O'Driscoll seems like he could be on a wing a little bit. I'd need to see the CBAs for it, but yeah, I really like that he's finally getting a dip, and definitely a guy to look out for in Supercoach with their heavily discounted prices. Caleb Sarong is another guy that I made the change early. 78% Tog. If I go to DFS, I just want to look at his usual Togs. It feels like he's an 80s guy, so I feel like he definitely had a little bit off, and he definitely sat in the second half as if you were watching in the second half. If I look at the Tog for him, he sat at 83%, and was that any injury related or anything? Because yeah, he definitely had some games where he sat for 75 in I'm guessing some blowouts, but it felt like he definitely had games where he would have more tog, and yeah, so 100 for him. I think he's a guy that will definitely take that next step and be that he definitely will average 105, I would say. It's just whether is he going to be value or is it going to be Andy Brayshaw at 91? I thought Brayshaw, he kind of got stuck a little bit with Fremantle because he'd be the one out the front of the stoppage and Sarong would be the one out the back of the stoppage. So, and Brayshaw did play an extra, 6% time on ground, which isn't too much, but I thought that Sarong could have easily turned this into like a 115 here, 120 against a star-studded side in the Indigenous All-Stars, but I thought he was more primed to do it than a Brayshaw, but I guess he doesn't get the most tackle numbers, is Sarong, and that's the annoying thing. But we'll just see. I think that's something that we monitor, the Brayshaw-Sarong split, as they're pretty interchangeable there on both platforms. Horne-Francis, 99, and this is probably the exact reason why I don't want Horne-Francis. 99, he did 9 above his average, I think that he's priced at in fantasy, but he scored 3 goals. He's not going to kick 3 goals each game. He's also not going to lay 6 tackles each game, and he had a very impactful game. This is an impact per possession player, showing it in full fling. I don't think he's going to do this. If you actually look at his numbers, especially in Supercoach, I don't know about fantasy, he relies heavily on marks to get to the absolute banker scores. The huge 130, 140 games, I think, were 30% CBAs for 10, 15 marks or something dumb like that. So I just don't see it. I don't see that top end scoring. It felt like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit across the board scoring. And a very good Supercoach game because he was hella efficient. But I just don't see it happening in Port's team, to be honest, as much. So it is what it is. Clark had one of the worst games that I've seen. 12 marks, but he has that role, but no Luke Ryan as well. And Alex Pearce obviously wasn't there. Brayshaw, 91, as we already talked about him. Jeremy Sharp, really good, but win roll, he's already pretty much maxed out. Liam Reid is probably the guy that needs the most discussion left, I would say. 36 hitouts, but if you look at the guys that he was facing, it was Cohen Livingston, who's a waffle ruck, and then also facing out against Finlayson, who is a basic, he shouldn't even be rucking at that point. As well as at one point, Joel Jeffries was in there, Ash Johnson. It was, to say that he played pretty much every single ruck possible, every guy above about 190 centimeters, wouldn't be lying to you. The All-Stars team, and this is how they smashed them, they're just a small side, small, nifty, and that's what they do. And they basically disregarded the ruck contest and then just beat them on the outside. And it was with Horne-Francis and Simpkin just getting all the contested possessions. If you actually look at it, I think that's what you'll see. Yeah, Jai Simpkin, 18 contested possessions, Rankin, Pickett, Kelly, but all of them on 7. But you had the main guys for Fremantle in Sarong and Brayshaw, 12 and 9. So you had, basically them getting smashed in the contested possessions, but uncontested possessions. Look at this. The run here, obviously, you do have Corey Wagner, Clark, and Sarong, but Clark's uncontested possessions were all basically turnovers, it felt like. But then you just see a massive amount of, it just looks like they dominated the uncontested possessions, did the likes of the Indigenous All-Stars. If we go here, and I just want to look at it just to see if I'm right in saying that, but it doesn't look like they have that. But anyway, enough said about that. Let's go back to that. Liam Reid, I see him being a 20 hit out, 3 or 4 tackles per game, 7, 8, 9 possessions per game, sort of 60 guy. And do you really want that for 3, 4 rounds? That's roughly what it looks like at the moment. I just don't think you can take that risk, given that you'd have an absolute major, and I'm saying major reshuffle when the guys come back. Plus also, is he that much value at this point in time? He might be for Supercoach, but for fantasy, and Supercoach has that annoying, but Supercoach has the pricing system, whereas he might not get to 3 games. And then you're stuck with him. I just don't know. If Darcy was round 5, 6, not rounds 3 to 5, which it could happen, but the wording is rounds 3 to 5 at the moment. If he's rounds 5 to 6, then Reedy probably becomes a massive option in Supercoach. But at the moment, you're just worried that he gets capped at 2 games, and then suddenly it's like, can't do anything. But he also had a horrific game in Supercoach terms because he only had like 3 hit-outs to advantage or something like that. He had 1 at halftime or something dumb like that, whereas Luke Jackson had 4 at halftime or quarter time or something like that. So Luke Jackson was just much, much better. Humphries I thought was pretty good early on. Bobby Hill, doesn't matter. Corey Wagner, thought his ball use was a little bit iffy, but there's a role there. Just don't know if but also the fact that Ryan and the likes of Pierce are out probably means that he shuffles. Erasmus, I thought he had a really bad game, or just sort of the actual influence on the game wasn't there. His stats filled up, but he generally does that. So yeah, he had a couple of bad turnovers, I feel like, and so I just don't see him cracking into that midfield. Frederick, 3 goals. Matty Johnson as well. I thought he had a more impactful game than Erasmus. Just didn't show up in the stat sheet, but yeah, I think he's ahead of Erasmus at the moment, to be honest with you. Let me just see the disposal efficiency for Erasmus was 80% and for Matthew Johnson 66. Okay. And then the turnovers, what were the clanger stats here? Let's look at it. Sarong 5 and 4. Going down, Erasmus 3 and 4 there, and I think that's where you kind of see it there, whereas Matthew Johnson 2 and 2. So I thought that, yeah, that kind of lines up with what I was looking at per se. Walker, Jackson 51, just a no-go there. Even though he had 10 hit-outs, you can see 2 goals, 1 there. Just not going to put the stats on the board there, even though he was attending some CBAs as a midfielder. Heath Chapman a miss, Draper, Tracy, etc. And then we go down. Will Brodie looks so far out of the mix. Cooper Simpson, small forward role, just not going to score. Murphy Reed, and I said this to Dylan actually when the game was going on, he's a good player, but I don't think he attends a CBA this year because he's so far back. He's got, what is it? You've got Sarong, Brayshaw, Young, Johnson, Erasmus, probably even Will Brodie. Luke Jackson could probably play on board before that. Talked about Erasmus already. So you got all those guys. What was that, 6? Nathan O'Driscoll, probably 7 guys ahead of him already in the midfield, and you need 4 or 5. So he's probably about 3 deep in the midfield. And if he does get a game, it's probably as that high half forward because, yes, we did see Sam Swiskowski go off injured. I believe he has a concussion. Could maybe be just precautionary. But that's the way I see it. He's going to play that sort of small, medium forward role at the moment. He'll be valuable in coming years, but definitely a guy that will be a midfielder long term, but in the short to medium term will just be a small forward, medium forward, etc. that doesn't really get any CBAs, and then we'll see him in 4 years' time suddenly get CBAs and he'll be valued, but just not this year. It doesn't look like, because he looked so far deep. He looked like he was just sort of almost doing cardio out there for points of that game. 7 touches and 52% tog. Yeah, just that equates to like a 10 or 11 possession game with barely any non-disposal points in an actual game. So that looks like a 35-40 in an actual game, which is on track with or on par with what we see out of sort of medium forwards generally. If he kicks a goal, then that gets up to a 50-pointer. We see that quite often. That's what I think Kako is going to do. So there's that. So that pretty much is the Indigenous All-Stars versus the Fremantle Dockers. Not much to talk about with the Indigenous All-Stars. They did what they did. They won the game, and there was so much positional changes. You had a lot of the small forwards have to go into the midfield and provide a spark. So I think Pickett, guys like that. Who else played on ball? Bobby Hill, I think, might have had a moment or two. Horn, Francis, and Simpkin were their main guys. You also had guys like Isaac Rankin playing on ball, Tim Kelly as well. Who else played a little bit on ball? Yeah, they just had a lot of guys rolling through there, just Bolton maybe, but I think he went off at half-time, etc. So they had quite a lot of guys just do a little bit, and then they ended up just being able to get it out of that contest, which they knew was crucial. And so they ended up winning the game, and it probably shows that you can load up on the smalls against Freo. But then again, Freo also had 2 guys out of their backline. But that is the video there going through the Indigenous All-Stars versus Fremantle game and giving you sort of an AFL fantasy rundown. If you did enjoy it, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on. If you're listening on Spotify, give me a follow and a rating over there, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.